Hi guys, my name's Doug. Welcome to my messy garage. In the last video we started working on my 1979 C3 Corvette, and after a hiatus of we'll say about 9 years, I finally managed to fire the car up. Check out the video up there somewhere. I ran it for a while, started to get things warmed up. Everything was, looking fairly good considering it hadn't run in so long. The carburetor definitely needs some work, and I'm suspicious of the timing. After it had run for a while, it stalled on me. When I went to fire it back up, the starter didn't have enough torque to turn the engine over. And what I guess is going on is the starter lives down beside the exhaust system, and I think it's getting heat soaked. And therefore, the starter isn't able to turn the motor over and restart it after it quits. I had always assumed that was like a kickback because of a timing issue, but the car starts very well when it's cold, so that tells me it is actually the starter that's the problem. Here I have a freshly refurbished starter from the local parts store. They were able to get it in quite quickly for me. In today's video, we're going to put this starter in and get it shimmed up properly. Hopefully this will solve the hard starting when the engine's warm. Hopefully the camera's picking this up. Way down there in that hole is the wires that tie the ignition system into the starter. And of course the main starter lead comes in there. Unfortunately, we can't reach the starter from the top. What we're going to have to do, first step, disconnect the battery so that we don't have any electricity flowing around here. Then we disconnect these leads. There's a big heavy lead coming in, then there's 2 or 3 smaller leads that engage the solenoid. Then we're going to have to jack the car up, and looks like there's a pile of oil down there on the floor leaking out of this thing. Well, not a pile, but some. And we'll have to get under there, drop the starter down from the bottom. The car's nice and cool today. I haven't tried running it, so hopefully there won't be too difficult to get things broken loose under there. Forgive the beeping garage door. I'm sitting in the middle of the beam. So where I've got this jack set up, as far as I've found best, is on the bottom of the cross member, and it gives a good solid spot to jack the front of the car up. Once we get the car up in the air good and high, we'll put the jack stands in underneath, hopefully on the frame. Worst case, we'll put them on the suspension, but my preference is to put them on the frame immediately behind the front wheels. Well, there is the end of the starter. Those tranny cooler lines are going to be a bit of a pain. Lots of oil leakage down here. How much of it's fresh and how much of it is existing, I don't know. Doesn't appear to be much dripping out at the bottom of the transmission. So as I suggested in the last video, it's probably pretty much empty. The plan is going to be to undo that support bolt at the back, at the front end of the starter. At the back we've got 2 bolts that go up into the bottom of the engine block. And we've got some wiring over on this side that needs to get disconnected. So let's gather some tools together, and as the instructions very clearly say, disconnect the battery, and then we'll see where we get to from there. Before we get too carried away swapping out starters, may as well look at what we've got going in here. We've got the this is the starter solenoid. On Fords it's quite often mounted on the fender. On GMs it's mounted to the part of the starter, and it actually engages the Bendix, this gear in here. We've got a main power lead coming in. These 2 wires hook up to the ignition system of the vehicle, and then this is the output into the starter. To test if you have a bad solenoid, I guess you can jump across these 2 leads with a screwdriver or a wrench, but we're not going to do that. This stud is used for mounting purposes, and we have through bolts that come up through these holes. Came with the starter, a couple of shims that are designed to go across, or is it across, however. When your starter Bendix is engaged, it has to have the proper gap between the flywheel and the teeth of the gear here, and that's what they give you this little 1/8 inch Allen key for, is to use it as a feeler gauge. So let's get the old starter out of there. First job we're going to have to do is get all the wires disconnected and make sure that we keep straight which ones are which. That has to be done from the top, and unfortunately I don't know how much you're going to be able to see of that, because we're going to be reaching down into a hole that's just about the perfect size to put my hand and not much else. When we get down to the bottom side, I will bring you guys back and show you what I have to do to unbolt. You can kind of see down there that big nut, I think it's showing up, is what we need to get the wrench on, and unfortunately there's not a whole lot of room for a full-size wrench down in the hole there, so I end up using a stubby little quarter drive socket. Get that on there. Fortunately I'm working by feel, I can't see anything down there. After standing on my head for about 10 or 15 minutes, I managed to get the wires disconnected. Not exactly a really comfortable place to work, and as you can see, it's up in behind this shield. So I don't know if you can see that or not, but anyways, it's up in behind a shield there, and it doesn't make getting at it all that easy. Fortunately, everything's all slimy down here. Shouldn't have to worry about rusted fasteners. And the nut goes flying. That's the shield that was covering the wires. Perhaps that might have been an easier way to get at the terminals. My plan for this is we're going to drop the two big bolts, and then we are going to try and wrestle it out through the hole between the frame and the exhaust here where the wires are kind of hanging down. I would really like to get one of those low boy lifts. That would be fantastic for working on this car. Put that on my to buy list once I get my channel monetized. Which reminds me, guys, if you're not subscribed to my channel, hey, why don't you poke that red subscribe button, and if you want to get notified when I put out new videos, you can poke that notification bell, and hey, why don't you poke that like button while you're at it. That sure helps get my videos out on YouTube. Okay, that is loose, but not too loose. Are we lucky enough for that to be the right size? No! Why would we be lucky enough for that to be the right size? I need a 3/8. And I have a 3/8 here. It's just a matter of finding it. One of the problems that I forgot about while working on late 70s General Motors products, I have a sneaking suspicion it's probably late 70s North American in general products, is that they're half metric and half imperial. So the bolts holding the torque converter cover on are metric. The rest of the bolts are standard. And there we go. Starter out, didn't even drop it on my head. And there doesn't appear to be any shims on the original starter. So we will try putting the new one up with no shims. See how it works. And of course all the wires get tangled in the way. We'll snug this up, but not all the way. And then we'll get the other bolt started, wherever the bolt disappeared to. So there is not 1/8 of an inch between teeth of the ring gear and the housing of the starter. So that tells me we got to put shim in. I had forgotten how much I absolutely loathe laying under this car at this height. That low boy lift that I mentioned earlier is starting to move higher and higher up the priority list. Okay, down. Should be able to take shims, get the stupid tape off. Actually, I guess there's only one shim there. Oh, there's two. I don't know if you guys can see this or not. There's the bolt. So what we have here is a couple of shims that we've put in between the body of the starter and the mounting boss on the back of the block. And we do now have 1/8 of an inch thereabouts between the starter shaft and the teeth. We should be able to engage the starter. Let's get this these wires connected back up, or at least started. Okay, that small lead is started. I'm going to go up to the top and connect the wires on there, and then come back down and put this shield on underneath. That should make things much easier. Okay, the shield is on, wires are tight. I'm going to hold off putting the torque converter cover on until we test the starter. Let me go hook the battery up and we'll spin this over with you guys under here and see what you think. That sounded pretty good to me. So now we need to get the torque converter cover back up in place. If memory serves me correctly, that can be a little bit of a ignorant pain to get back in. It is a moderate pain to get it out, but it really doesn't like to go back up where it belongs. Well, so much for that being a pain to get in there. That went pretty easy. Now I just got to get screws back in. That's got the starter bolted in. There's the old one on the floor. Sounds like it's engaging in the flywheel properly, so that's a good sign. And I'm going to leave the front end jacked up in the air here for the time being. I'm thinking I'm going to throw a set of spark plugs at this thing. The spark plugs that are in it don't have really any miles on them whatsoever, but the thing's not running very well. So we'll do that. Spark plugs are relatively inexpensive. The reason I want to keep it up in the air to do that is the back 4 spark plugs are much easier to change from underneath on this car than they are from the top. The front 4 plugs are easier to change from the top. Well, I'm going to say we're up against the timing issue and the carburetor issue that we knew existed ahead of time. Turning over great. Exactly what I was hoping for. Money well spent on this starter, I think. I think we're going to end this one here. Engine's definitely turning over better with the new starter, and now it's just a matter of getting that timing sorted out, whatever distributor issues are going on, and getting the carburetors dialed in. I think we're going to tackle the carburetors on the next video, so tune in for that one. Thanks a lot for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, and appreciate it if you leave a comment so that know who's watching. And we'll see you in the next mess.